Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly, and we're back with another Southwest Virginia fishing report with Matt Reilly of Matt Reilly Fly Fishing. How you doing, Matt?
Oh, I'm doing great, Marvin. How are you?
Just trying to stay out of trouble. Check the weather before I hit the record button with you, and it looks like you're kind of in a kind of seasonable pattern for your neck of the woods, probably temperatures in the mid to upper 80s with pop-up thunderstorms. What are you expecting on the water?
Yeah, that's about right. Those pop-up isolated thunderstorms are sort of, they're not a big threat when it comes to stream flow, unless they hit just that sweet spot that, up in the headwaters of a trout stream or some bigger river tributary or something like that. But in general, our smallmouth fishing has been great. Our spawn this year in Virginia was sort of on average about a month behind the historical average. Started probably the second or third week of May. And so we're just sort of now transitioning from spring to summer, or at least that's what it seems like from being on the river. I started noticing about the 26th of June, week and a half ago, fish sort of abandoning their spring locations. For the last few months, it's been pretty predictable as to where the fish are going to be. They have sort of abandoned some of those spots. They're definitely in transition. You see them sort of moving around in random spots in the river that don't really make sense relative to spawning activity or spring locations. And so right now, smallmouth fishing, we're primarily covering water. I'm just trying to fish everything, picking fish up in some sort of random spots. But I expect over the next week or so for things to kind of settle down, the fish to move into their summer locations and set up and be there for the big sweet spot that summer is in the world of the smallmouth. But that's what we've been seeing on the big rivers. The new has been high pretty much all spring. It's still a little on the high side, and it's not really dropping. It's just been stable. The Radford gauge has been running a little over 5,000 for the last couple of weeks without much rain, sort of raising the upper river to give the people that control the dam much reason to keep it running that high. So it should start to drop off here pretty soon, back down to a little lower, a little more fishable levels. But that said, I have done a couple of trips up there over the last couple of weeks, and it's been pretty good. Like I said, we haven't had a ton of rain to dirty the water up, so the clarity's been good. It's just a little on the high and swift side. But yeah, that's what the smallmouth fishing is looking like.
Well, that's good. So I guess from a tip and tactic perspective, that sounds like that means poppers early and late, and then kind of mid column stuff during the day.
Yeah, with the swifter water on the new, the main stem, we've been catching some fish on top water, catching fish on streamers, fishing subsurface and those higher flows. It's a little easier to more effectively cover water and get in front of fish. But, where we've got lower flows in some of our smaller rivers and tributaries, top water works just fine. It's just a little different program than we were working, several weeks ago where, the fish were in consistent spots and you could pretty much row through water that wasn't protected or that was too swift and just fish those slow moving or real pockety sections of river where fish were set up to spawn, a month ago. Right now, the fish are just everywhere. Everywhere, but nowhere in particular. The last smallmouth trip I ran, our biggest fish came out of like 8 inches of water that was, fairly swift, on the bank. It was basically like jogging speed water, not where they would have been a couple of weeks ago. More than likely not where they'll be throughout the most of the summer, but they're just moving right now. So however you can feel like you're efficiently getting in front of fish and covering all the different habitat types, I'd say that's the way to go.
Got it. And we've got a question from Andy on the smallmouth front. Andy lives in Northern Virginia, so he's kind of fishing kind of the upper Shenandoah Valley for smallmouth, but he really was looking for tips on, what to do if you have to wade fish for smallmouth because you don't have a boat.
Yeah, that's a good one. I would say more than anything, you're just looking for, it sounds kind of dumb to say it, but water that you can easily wade, and ideally sections of river that you can wade for a good long ways. Maybe that have some bigger ledges in them with pockets and that kind of thing, or sort of more like isolated spots. You're probably not going to be able to wade fish effectively a big, long, deep flat because one, you'll probably be up to your armpits or deeper. But also, you got flat water, so wading through it fairly aggressively will sort of put fish off and that kind of thing. But when I've wade fished for smallmouth, there's a smaller river near my house that I fish on foot quite a bit. And when I was growing up, they're sort of stations that you're always going to find fish in, pockets behind rocks, little depressions along the bank where you've got a log or something like that. And then you can sort of reach into the tails of the deeper flats and stuff like that above and below the shallower pieces of water that you can wade. But as far as approach, that's all I would say is just find water that you can effectively and safely wade, and it's not like I said, it's got sort of more stationary and precise spots that might hold fish. A big long flat where the fish can move around and still stay out of current is probably not your best bet. At the same time, a long riffly section of river that's, average depth of, a half a foot to a foot with no real holding water, just because you can wade it, it's probably not going to be great fishing either. So I would say keep that in mind and use things like Google Earth and satellite imagery to your advantage and look for those sections that look fairly shallow and that have, lots of big boulders or ledges and stuff like that in them. But that's how I would start anyway.
Yeah, and I guess the only thing I could think to add to that is to check with your local fly shops, right? Because, Andy, you're not the only person that isn't fishing for smallmouth out of a boat. And, I'm more familiar with Central Virginia. So for example, I could tell you that if you went to downtown Lynchburg and went to Percival's Island, you could wade out into the James River from there and catch smallies. But there are plenty of places, kind of on the upper James too. But I would just check with your local fly shops.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because to your point, most people don't have boats, so the fly shops probably get that question a lot, and it's something most people don't start smallmouth fishing with a boat. So almost everybody has done it before and knows the life of fishing on foot and its limitations and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we love questions on the articulate fly. If you send us a question, probably the best way is on one of our social media pages on maybe Facebook or Instagram. If we use your question, I'll send you some articulate fly swag and you'll get into a drawing for some cool stuff from Matt at the end of the season. And, we have the tradition, Matt, about talking about what you're writing, but I know you had a quick announcement about your Smalley school that you wanted to make before we talked about what you were writing for the Rural Virginian.
Yeah. So, I'll address your first point first. Fortunately and unfortunately, I've just been slammed with guide trips the last couple of weeks, and didn't actually get anything in the Rural Virginian for this week, but tonight or tomorrow I'll sit down and crank out next week. So I haven't quite figured out what it's going to look like yet, but that's on the docket here soon. So next time we talk, there'll certainly be some material there. But yeah, our Reilly Rod Crafters annual summer smallmouth camp, we had to reschedule due to a few cancellations from people who understandably weren't going to be able to make it because they have to hop planes and fly across the country and that kind of thing. So we've pushed it back to September 27th through the 29th, which is, late enough to where, we can, all the guides involved, we were still able to work out some free dates that we all had in common. But we should also still have some great topwater fishing and good flows and warm weather and all that. And it's 2 days of guided smallmouth fishing on the New River and a few other, world-class smallmouth streams in Southwest Virginia, with some of the best guides from the area, and includes 3 nights of lodging and meals, and the hosts are Chris Reilly, my dad, the owner of Reilly Rod Crafters, and then Joe Mahler, who's Marvin, you've done an interview with before, but he's a casting instructor from down in Florida, and just a great guy to be with in general. So with him there, it makes it a great event for people who are just sort of getting into fly fishing or have trout fished their whole life and interested in learning to throw flies at smallmouth, or the whole gamut. So if you're looking for more information, don't hesitate to get in touch with me, and we'll get you set up.
Yeah, that's really good to know. And, folks, Joe's got a great way of teaching casting, and he's a great guy to be around. And, that's kind of a pretty awesome situation. Matt, I know you're really humble, but, you've got kind of, that entire kind of Chuck Craft family of guides is going to kind of come and guide these folks. And so if you're, really want to learn, smallmouth and the craft of fishing for smallmouth from, people that learn from one of the masters, in that part of the world, you really owe it to yourself to go. And, great people, you'll learn a ton, and, it sounds like a great time.
Absolutely. I mean, I enjoy it just because, our guests in the past have been awesome, but also, just the guides are some of my best friends and fishing buddies that I've been able to find. So it's, everybody involved just a swell human being, and it's always a great time. So we're looking forward to it, definitely hoping we can make it happen. And we'd love to fill it up with more local people too, if we can help it this year. So yeah.
Well, there you go. And the bonus is it won't be so hot.
100%. I mean, it's, the last couple of days here, we're fairly lucky that we're at a little higher elevation than back home or where you're from in Central Virginia there, Marvin. But, we've been hitting 90 pretty consistently the last couple of days, and our water temps on the smallmouth rivers are coming up, and it's getting warm. So, it's hard to complain knowing that people 2 hours away are dealing with 100 degrees, but it's still hot.
Yeah, dude, I don't know, August fishing for smallmouth when it's sunny, it's pretty darn hot, and Lord knows it's humid.
Yeah, it is.
Well, listen, before I let you hop and get to the word processor, why don't you let folks know where they can find you so they can help fill out the rest of your guide calendar?
Yeah. The website is Matt Reilly Fly Fishing. And as usual, my phone number and social media contacts and everything are on there. So however you feel comfortable reaching out, love to hear from you. July is pretty much booked solid, and I've got some stuff left in August. But love to hear from anybody that's decided to get on the water this summer.
Absolutely, and folks, it's the smallmouth fishing's only going to get better. You owe it to yourself to get out and catch a few. Tight lines, everybody. Tight lines, Matt.
All right. Thanks, Marvin.